Vincent Bugliosi is here. Are you Italian?
Yeah.
Are you really?
Yeah.
Do you know I'm a Little Italy Man of the Year this year? Did you know that?
Is that right?
Yeah, I changed my name for medical reasons.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I wanted to live.
Now, I'm not supposed to ask you your real last name.
Pinto.
Oh, Pinto.
Joey Pinto, yeah.
Joey Pinto.
Just like, but they say it's Portuguese, and it could be some sort of of a thing. You know, there's Bank de Pinto.
Yeah, but I'm Italian on both sides, yeah.
Are you really?
Yeah.
Well, my father's from Rome, you know.
Well,
so
my folks were from the province of Perugia, which is close to Rome.
Very close. Yeah. So you guys didn't have any reason to come here either. I mean, you know, you were not extradited, were you?
No.
Oh, good. You know, I don't like to use lawyer talk in front of you.
You know, I was on your show once before, but I didn't know you were so funny.
Yeah. Well,
I forget about it.
I just got funny this week.
I don't know what it was, some murder case, obviously, that I wrote a book about. It could have been any of my many murder, but you have interviewed me before.
I never remembered interviewing you, but I think I did hang out with you.
I'm almost positive. I remember coming to this building here.
Yeah.
You didn't prosecute him, did you?
No, now Albert Wunsch is here also. Hi, Al. How are you?
I'm
fine.
You're
introduced.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. You just wanted to jump right in there, right? Just like any defense attorney. Are you a defense guy or are you an offense guy?
I was a prosecutor for 15 years, and I'm also a defense attorney.
All right. Now, you know, we know my Judith Regan story, right?
Yes.
That I had her on the show here a couple of weeks ago. Judith and I are friends, and we went out to eat, and we went out to see a movie, and we went to eat. We were friends. So I said, come on to do the show. We'll have some dinner, and they're going to take some pictures for the New York Times, and I want you to be in them. She said, fine. So she came here, and we did that, and I had her on the air with a friend of hers was with her. And the thing I did with her, I thought was fun. You know, we talked about her daughter and my kids and her kids and all our business that we usually do. And I didn't bring up anything until I guess in the second half hour I brought up something about O.J. Simpson.
That was the last 10 minutes, actually.
But I didn't bring it up, did I?
You did bring it up.
I did?
Yes,
was I the one who said it?
Yes.
I forgot. See.
Yes. Because I was sitting in the control room, and I was, like, waiting for you to do it, and then you finally did. And then the fireworks started, and I wish you had done it in the beginning of the show.
Well, she didn't argue with me, though.
No, she was arguing with her friend.
With her friend, who also was her
who had published the memoirs of another serial killer or something like that.
Well, not another one. I mean, O.J. Simpson was not a serial killer.
Well, he killed more than one.
I wrote a book on the Simpson case.
Now, you wrote five reasons why he did it? Is that what it was, Vince? Something like that?
5 reasons why he got away with murder.
Yeah.
Outrage, yeah.
So you did that already. You did that before Judith Regan.
It got up to number 1 in the New York Times. Yeah.
Well, you know, the reason I'm bringing this up now is, did I say something wrong on that thing?
No. You asked the questions that, you brought it up, and she's very defensive about it.
Yeah.
Needless to say, I mean, it cost her job. So,
but they're talking about it again now, about how some of the book is being let out on the Internet.
Well, what they're talking about also is the fact that the Goldman estate actually won the royalties to the book. They transferred them. They were put into some phony trust that O.J. Simpson had set up for his daughter, and now they were ruled to be attachable to the Goldman estate.
Now, Vince here had the Manson trial, too.
Right.
Trials. How long did that go on for?
About the same time as the Simpson case. They were both about 9 months.
Yeah.
Well, the guilt phase was 7.5 months, and then the penalty phase was another month and a half. So it was a total of 9 months in the Manson case. And they were all sentenced to death, but then the Supreme Court set aside those death penalty convictions.
That book is called Helter Skelter.
Yeah.
Which is,
that's
famous. A phenomenal.
Now, did you ever talk to him since then?
No, but he did write me 4 letters. One of them had kind of a little thread in it, and I didn't respond to the letters. I sent them over to the Bureau of Corrections there in California. I got a kick out of one because he seemed to be a little upset with me that I didn't answer his previous letter. And I don't know if he thought we were going to become pen pals or something like that, but I mean, I'm the guy that sent him to death row, you know.
Well,
so I don't have anything to do with him, no.
Truman Capote would have hung out with him.
It's funny, Truman came to court during the Manson case, I think it was a New York Times Sunday magazine, and they wanted him to do an article on it. And he sat there for about 3 days. I didn't talk to him until the end. And he got up and he said, this case is just too goofy. I'm going to go to Palm Springs. And he never ended up writing it. Well, he thought he was going to come to court and see something simple. Then he starts reading about the bottomless pit and the Bible and the Beatles, and he realized that he could do a great job, but it was going to take him a lot of time, and he didn't want to do it.
Well, would you? Are you sorry you did that? That you took him on?
The Manson case?
Yeah.
No. I was assigned the case, and I was I felt honored that the DA had enough confidence in me to do it. We had 1,000 lawyers in the office, and no, I take that back. We didn't have 1,000 back then. We have 1,000 now. We had 500 back then.
Yeah.
But I had only been in the office for 5 years. Normally, a case like that is given to a lawyer who's been there for 15 or 20 years. It's kind of a plum assignment. So I was honored that the DA had enough confidence in me to give me a case of that magnitude. Because at that point, that was the biggest publicity case we'd ever had in L.A.
Yeah.
The Simpson case, of course, outstripped it.
Well, or the more what's the name of the morgue? The coroner, what's his name again? Tom?
No,
the guy who became so famous out of L.A.
Thomas Noguchi.
Noguchi,
but that wasn't a famous case. So.
No, but I'm just saying he got so famous.
Right.
His name comes up more than anybody.
Well,
he's a celebrity.
Yeah, he was.
He did a lot of autopsies.
He was my coroner in the Manson case. Yeah.
Is it always someone Asian who does that work? Just wondering. Yeah. Now, you know what? Tom Slinch is here.
Yes.
And I, the reason we're gathered today, you have the biggest book ever published in front of you right now. What are you doing? Well, the entire history of the Kennedy family?
Yeah.
Includes Grey Gardens and the music?
Yeah, it's 1,600 pages, and then there's a CD of another 1,125 pages, and it's very, very long, obviously. The question is it necessary? And those that are reading the book are saying yes.
All right, now you know that Albert reads everything.
No, right.
And he read this entire book.
Well, no,
1,700 pages.
He has not read the end notes yet.
I didn't read the end notes. That is correct. I do apologize that I didn't get to that, but I had to average from the point I got the book to the point where Vincent came on, 325 pages a night I had to read going.
Now, Al will tell you that people are being scared away from this book because of the length. Those that are reading the book are not complaining about the length at all. Tom's here with us, and when he was finished with the 1,600 pages, he wanted to read more. And I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why. If you were reading, Joey, a 1,600-page book on some economic theory, at some point in time, you would say, I've heard enough about this theory. But this book is broken down into sections, and each section is a separate story. And people literally are jumping around from section to section. When you're reading 4 Days in November, that's when the president was shot and killed, up through his funeral, that has nothing to do with the Oswald biography, where I take the reader from his origins in New Orleans up to the sniper's nest and all the places in between, Mexico City, Minsk, Moscow, Japan, etc. When you're reading about the autopsy of the president, it has nothing to do with the Zapruder film. When you're reading the section on organized crime, it has nothing to do with the sections on the CIA, FBI, KGB, etc. So no one that's reading the book has any complaint whatsoever about the length. But those that aren't reading the book, they're saying, oh my God, 1,600 pages. Are you crazy?
It's not as long. I read it in 2 weeks. It's not as long, but I'm interested in the subject, but it's a good read. And I read the areas that I enjoyed first. But I'm looking forward to reading the end notes. I haven't gotten to the end notes yet.
Yeah. Are you going to do a prequel? No. We'll be right back. The legendary prosecutor and best-selling author Vincent Bugliosi is here, and also Thomas Lynch, who is not too shabby, reclaiming history. He's just unbelievable with this Kennedy stuff. I mean, I thought we were
the subtitle's important, because if you just say reclaiming history, they think it's a book about history. But it's the subtitle's The Assassination of President John F. Kennedy.
And we have Albert Wunsch here. Be right back. The broadcast with Judith Regan you can download at WOR710.com, those who want to hear that particular hour I spent with her, which is on our archived, and you can go to WOR710.com, punch up Joey Reynolds. A lot of people would like to do that. And then you get to the Judith Regan thing, and you'll hear what went on. She was very candid. She was candid. And she said she went to lunch with him, and he said he killed his wife. So what are you going to say? What do you say after that? Will you need a jury?
That wasn't exactly what she said.
That is exactly what she said.
That's not exactly what she said.
Oh, yeah, it is. Did you hear it?
I was here.
Oh, but you forgot then, didn't you? There we go.
Would
you like to hear that tape?
I did. I'm going to have to now. I will be downloading it when I get home.
I remember clearly why she's pissed at me, so believe me, she did say that exactly. But I don't. That's not the issue. The issue is that he killed his wife. Why do we go all this long way around in our...
Well, that's the interesting thing about this book, is that because people have gone the long way around to try to establish what is really a simple fact, that Oswald killed Kennedy. I will say this, that in the beginning of this book, the 4 days of the assassination, the timeline that he develops in that is undoubtedly the best I have ever read for setting up the facts of that assassination.
I appreciate it.
Absolutely, positively phenomenal. Every fact that you could possibly want to know is put in that. It's tremendous, and the book is worth it just for that alone.
Well, I appreciate it. It's my, to use a cliched term, my magnum opus. I cannot do any better than this. I put the best that I learned as a criminal prosecutor and as an author of true crime into this book. So I think, it sounds like I'm boasting, but it's the truth. It's the Bible on the case. Any question that anyone would ever want to have answered is in this book, plus 100 other questions that they wouldn't even dream of asking. But I didn't write this book for the money or for the bestseller list. I wrote it to be the book for the ages. And just last week, you've all heard of Scott Turow, of course.
Sure.
Right.
Well, Scott gave a review for the book. He said, quote, centuries from now, people are going to be reading Reclaiming History. And I'm very, very happy about the fact that Tom Hanks, I met with Tom about a week and a half ago in L.A. Tom and his people are going to be doing a 10-hour miniseries on the book for HBO.
Yeah.
But it's my baby, and someone said it weighs 7 pounds, and I said, well, that's about what a baby weighs. But I've been working on it for 20 years, and it's really, Joey, a very simple case. Within, I would say, 21 hours of the shooting in Dealey Plaza, virtually everyone in Dallas law enforcement, I'm talking about the Dallas PD, Dallas Sheriff's Office, local office of the FBI, it was obvious to them that Oswald killed Kennedy and acted alone. And it remains to this day at its core a very, very simple case. The Chief Justice Earl Warren, he was the head of the Warren Commission, he said that when he was a DA up in Oakland, California, he said this would be a 2-3 day murder case and we would have convicted Oswald. That's one reality. It's a simple case at its core. But there's a second reality here. Because of the unceasing and the fanatical obsession of literally, and I'm not exaggerating here, literally thousands upon thousands of assassination researchers and conspiracy theorists who have investigated every single conceivable aspect of this case for close to 44 years. They've split hairs, and then they proceed to split the split hairs. This simple case has been transformed into its present state, Joey. And you know what its present state is?
No.
It's now the most complex murder case by far in world history. Nothing even remotely comes close to it.
Not true.
What other murder case is nearly as complex as this?
The Beatles. Paul is dead. They played it backwards and ruined everybody's needle.
You are a funny person. But what enabled me to keep my interest, among other things, for 20 years, and many people have said this before me, the Kennedy case, Joey, is probably the most fascinating story ever told. That's why more words have been written about this case than any other single one-day event in world history. Why today, 44 years later, people are still talking about it all over the world. You could get 10 of the best novelists you could find, put them in a room, give them all the time they needed to come up with a presidential assassination as unbelievable and as intriguing as this one. They couldn't even come close. They couldn't come within 10 light years of it. I mean, the cast of characters alone rivals anything in Shakespeare. It's an unbelievable case.
It was the beginning of reality TV, and that was the key, because the disillusionment that we suffered as a society. You know, we were protected. We were in a bubble up until then.
Right.
That was the first of those bubble breakers.
Right.
And we've had several of the peacemakers killed, as you know.
Right.
And then we went on, including his brother. Then we went on to have this 9/11 as an escalation of that. You know,
right.
we're just. We are a society that's fractured as a result of disillusionment, and that was the beginning of it. As I was a kid, we never really would ever think of that as being possible.
And that's one reason why people believe in a conspiracy in this case, because they find it intellectually incongruous, as they did back then, that someone whom they perceive to be a king, i.e. Kennedy, could be struck down in a moment by someone they perceive to be a nonentity. I mean, here's Kennedy literally capturing a world audience with his wit. Captivating is a better word. Captivating a world audience with his wit, his charm, his intelligence. There's a youthful vigor, very, very attractive wife, bright, glorious day in Dallas. He's driving down the street, waving to the crowd, smiling, and a second later, it's all over with, and people just viscerally, it's not logical. They say, wait a while, something more has to be involved here.
Sure.
But of course, bullets are very democratic, and they kill or injure whomever they hit, and you don't have to be important to pull the trigger.
Well, if you grew up with Shakespeare, you would look at Lyndon Johnson as being in waiting.
Well, yeah, of course.
And that was part of the drama. You would see him, and also the underbelly, which was the legal system not supporting the Kennedys, with J. Edgar Hoover being at war, and Bobby Kennedy pricking everybody, and we didn't even have the Marilyn Monroe component yet.
Right.
But, we're talking about a lot of things, a lot of plates were spinning, and they were called gossip. They were gossip to the American public. Now we jump on everything so fast. I don't think we have a chance for gossip. I think it goes so ahead of it that I could say something to you right now and you would not be surprised, but then later on it would hit you. But this is different, isn't it?
But wait, Joey, you hit the nail on the head before about that this was the beginning of reality TV.
Yeah.
Because after that moment in Dallas, the cameras, the film crews, the press never left the side of the president.
And then you saw the Oswald situation.
Well, because what happened at that point was that, if you noticed, there was no press that was, taking film of the president. Now, everywhere the president goes, there's film of it. The president was in New York. You see the motorcade going. They have cameras on the president now all the time.
Well, why did Jack Ruby shoot him?
Why did he shoot him?
Yeah.
Before I answer that question,
wait. We're going to take a break.
No, I can't answer it. I can't.
But you have to wait because you have a lot of time and 1,700 pages, and I didn't even see you wear your legal briefs. Vincent Bugliosi is here tonight with this best-selling book, hope to be, which is called Kennedy Assassination.
No, Reclaiming History: The Assassination of President John F. Kennedy.
All right. We'll be right back. Vincent Bugliosi is here, and along with Thomas Flintstone. Tom, you were champing it, so you were eating half that book. What were you wanting to say here?
Well, what I wanted to ask Vince was, you say it's a simple case, and maybe it is evidentially, but what's Oswald's motive?
Well, Tom, you've asked a very good question. No one's going to know for sure why Oswald killed Kennedy. Even if he were alive today and wanted to tell us, he might not be able to explain to us the dynamics swirling around in his fevered mind that led to this monstrous act of murder. But I think there's certain items of circumstantial evidence that we can look to answer your question. Number one, Oswald had delusions of grandeur. We know that. I mean, his diary, called the Historic Diary, a colleague, not a colleague, but a squad mate of his in the Marines said that Oswald wanted to do something that 10,000 years from now people would be talking about. His wife, Marina, said that he compared himself with the other historical figures whom he read about. Becoming a little more specific in answer to your question, Oswald, as you know, Tom, revered Fidel Castro. He was an ardent supporter of the Cuban Revolution.
That's where Hidel comes from, Fidel?
Yeah. He certainly was opposed to the Bay of Pigs invasion, which Kennedy was behind. 5 days before the assassination, Kennedy gave a speech in Miami urging the Cuban people to rise up against the Cuban people and the Cuban government, and all but promising prompt U.S. aid if he did. Oswald read the papers, so obviously he did not like what Kennedy was doing. And I agree with the Warren Commission and the House Select Committee that Oswald's love for Cuba and Castro played a role in the motivation, in that he felt that by killing an enemy of Castro, somehow he was furthering the Cuban cause. Now, there's another point that I argued in London, and I should tell you, Joey, how I got into this, and then I'll jump right back. Yeah. In 1986, London Weekend Television asked me to, quote, prosecute Oswald for the Kennedy murder.
Right.
And Jerry Spence, you know who Jerry Spence is?
Yeah.
Yeah, the great lawyer. He defended Oswald. They flew over a Dallas jury, chosen from the jury rolls of the Dallas Federal District Court. We had a regular federal judge. We worked on the case for 5 months. Jerry will tell you the same thing I'm telling you. We worked on it as hard as any other murder case that we had ever handled. No script, okay? We had the original Warren Commission witnesses, and the jury came back with a verdict of guilty. Now, why am I talking about that now?
We're talking about Oswald's motive.
Okay, all right. While I... Don't get old, Joey, because you go off on a tributary and you forget where you were. Okay. In preparing for that trial, I read an entry which was in Oswald's diary that I gave to the jury. See, Oswald did not hate President Kennedy. He was opposed to his position on Cuba, but he liked his position on civil rights. There's no evidence that he hated Kennedy. But one thing we do know, he hated the United States of America. That's very, very clear. And I'm reading his diary, and there's one entry that leapt off the page to me more than perhaps to the average person. And it goes back to the Manson case. Manson did not know the identity, the precise identity of the people he was having his minions kill. He knew they were representatives of the white establishment whom he hated. So they were representative murders, but he didn't know the exact identity of these people. They were representative murders. I'm reading the diary, and Oswald said, I've lived under capitalism and communism, and I quote, these are his words, I despise the representatives of both systems. And the word representatives leapt off the page to me, and I argued to the jury, we don't know why he killed Kennedy, but I said it's possible that he viewed Kennedy as the ultimate quintessential representative of a society for which he held a grinding contempt, and that when he was aiming at Kennedy, in his addled mind, he was aiming at the United States of America. But, Tom, you asked a good and a tough question. You know, in the criminal law, motive is not an element of the corpus delicti of any crime. You don't have to prove it. I mean, I put people on death row without knowing precisely why they did it. All I knew is that they killed the victim, and there was no legal justification for what they did. But that's a very good question, and I'm sure I can give you a...
well, let me ask you, wait, let me go on this one, Vince. If that... I
want to say something, too, just to clarify something. When you said that Oswald hates this country, or hated this country, I would like to say that I believe that hate is a euphemism for jealousy. So, you know, hate is not, we call it hate, but that doesn't mean a great anger. It means a great envy sometimes.
Well, I don't think he envied us. I mean, he was looking for Marxism. He felt that the worker was exploited over here, and he goes over to Russia thinking there's going to be a class of society. And one of the funny lines is at the State Department over there, the embassy. And he says, I'm a Marxist, and I've come over here because I want to be a Marxist. And the guy at the embassy said, well, you're going to be awfully lonely over here if you're a Marxist. He became disenchanted with Russia because he found out that over there, you know, there were wealthy people with Ziln cars and Dakas and going to the Black Sea. And so he viewed Castro and Cuba as the last bastion of Marxism on the face of this globe, and tried to get there in late September and early October, just before the assassination. He went to the Cuban consulate in Mexico City, tried to get a visa there, and they turned him down. He became almost hysterical. He's crying and everything.
But this is the problem I have. I mean, with regards to the motive. Now, first of all, let me just set up the fact that Vincent's book is set up just like he's prosecuting a trial. He starts off with the statement. It's basically a statement of facts. Then he goes into it's like the thesis, the antithesis, and then the synthesis when he comes to his conclusion. But the one thing I had a problem with regards to the motive, and Tom and I had discussed this, he gets he shoots the president. He is now in a press conference. He is the intention of the entire world, and he doesn't say, I did this for Marxism, I did this because this country sucks, I did this because of this. He says, I'm a patsy. Why didn't he take every assassin in the history of mankind has taken their assassination and used it as a platform for their political position?
Okay, Al, in all deference to you, you're a very bright guy. You did not read the book that closely. You read it
No, I did read it that closely because we discussed this. We couldn't find
the answers to all your questions are in the book.
But no, but the point. But I don't. I think you beg the question on what you said with regards to that.
I specifically addressed this. Who said that because he wanted to do something 10,000 years from now that people would know about it, who said that he didn't want to be alive for a certain period so he could enjoy the congratulations of Moscow or Cuba. Who said he didn't want to live? He wanted to live, okay? So at some point he probably would have done exactly what you said. But he wanted to do it at his time. He wanted to live, okay?
But that's begging the question.
No, it's not begging the question.
Because let's look at it this way. John Wilkes Booth kills Lincoln.
Yeah, but how can you compare him with... We're talking about Oswald now.
Down the line.
I can't talk about...
But Charles Guiteau, okay...
Can't talk about these people.
But all of them had a political position that they were espousing. Every one of them did it for politics. Every one of them did it because they believed that they were right. Kosgowitz, whatever his name was, who shot... we
already know that we don't know the exact reason that he had.
But he was an anarchist.
In fact, he may not have done it if Marina had taken him back the night before.
Well, that's an interesting point.
Okay, now about the Patsy thing, you didn't read that in the book. I talked about that.
I know you talked about it.
See, Joey, they asked Oswald if he was guilty. He said, "No, I'm just a patsy." Now, what the conspiracy theorists have run with, they said, "What's he talking about?" Well, he's a patsy for people who framed him, the mob or the CIA. Yeah. But the context in which he was asked that question is, did you kill the president? You know what he said? He says, no, they're coming after me because I defected to the Soviet Union. He's talking about the Dallas authorities are prosecuting him because he defected to the Soviet Union. That's the context, and that's in the book, and apparently that slipped by you.
No, it did not.
Why, but when he said, I'm a patsy, he didn't imply that the CIA or the mob or the military complex. He was talking about the Dallas police coming after him because they were angry at him for defecting to the Soviet Union.
And shooting Tippett.
Yeah, right.
And shooting Tippett.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, and see, but maybe people don't realize this, that there was a police officer gunned down that same day, Officer Tippett, who had approached Oswald after the shooting and was shot by Oswald. The Tippett point, which I know you do put
It wasn't killed.
Tippett was killed.
Tippett died.
Yeah, Tippett was killed. But Tippett was the part of the equation.
Talk.
Yeah, but he's the part of the equation that you did. You put a lot more about him than I've seen in any other book, really, about the Tippett situation. But that's another part of the assassination.
There's a great book on the Tippett murder by Dale Myers.
Dale Myers' book, right? You mentioned that in there
with Mellis, yeah,
right.
Let's talk about Oswald's guilt, because that's a sine qua non to this whole situation here. I learned, Joey, as a criminal prosecutor, and it's just common sense, that if you're innocent of a crime, chances are there's not going to be any evidence at all pointing towards your guilt. Why? Because you're innocent. Yeah. But because of the nature of life and the unaccountability of things, now and then there's one piece of evidence pointing towards your guilt, even though you're innocent. And in a strange, unusual situation, maybe even two, maybe even three pieces of evidence pointing towards your guilt, and you're completely innocent.
Like Phil Spector. Was totally innocent.
You are funny. You're a funny guy.
But wait, before you finish your point, because I don't want to cut you short again, because we've got to take another break, and I don't want you to get in the middle of this, and then you're going to have to be cut off. I would rather that you start all over. So hold on.
You want me to start all over?
No. I mean, for that particular stuff.
Okay, good.
We're on the air live with our radio show every night from midnight till 5 in the morning, and we have so many different people who are wonderful and experienced. The thing that I like about Vincent Bugliosi and why we asked him here tonight, not because he wrote a 1,700-page book, because we've had a couple of those guys, but he has. I mean, certainly he's credible, but that we're not. It's not a review board. Yeah. The reason that I wanted to have him on the air, and the same with you, Al, I think we can agree on this one, is that you have somebody who really is experienced.
Oh.
And that makes a difference, because there's people, when you talk about theory, and we'll come back and you can explain all this on your side of the break here. But when we have people on the air here and they don't have experience and they have all these thoughts, I mean, people are gifted with imagination. And some of it is fantasy, and some of it is psychic ability. I don't want to go there. But I think when you have somebody who's experienced and they get on the air and they start talking about something, you got to really pay attention to at least what they're saying and weigh it heavily. So that's why I wanted you on the air tonight, because I think, it's your experience that's barking right now.
I'm honored by that. Are we on live, Dale?
We are live. But
there's no way for me to know whether we're on or not.
Well, we're going to take a break. What is it different? You're not saying anything wrong, and you didn't commit a crime.
We're going to take a break.
Not yet.
No, we didn't do it yet. But there's no evidence here, so you didn't.
No, I just have no way of knowing when we're on or not.
There's a couple of things that point to you, but they'll be all right.
Okay.
One of them is two sponsors. We'll be right back on the Joey Reynolds Show from New York. This is a break.
No, but see,
Vincent Bugliosi is here, and Thomas Lynch. Am I confusing Vincent tonight?
I'm enjoying the atmosphere here very much. I'm enjoying your humor, and I'm honored to be on the show.
I'm just getting beaten up over here. I'm the one getting beaten up.
Anyway, I'm saying that now and then, even though you're innocent, 2 or 3 pieces of evidence point towards your guilt. But here, Joey, everything pointed towards Oswald's guilt. Everything he said, everything he did, all the physical evidence, all the scientific evidence. In the book, I set forth 53 separate pieces of evidence pointing irresistibly to Oswald's guilt. And under those circumstances, Joey, it would not be humanly, and I want to underline that word, it would not be humanly possible for him to be innocent, at least not in the world in which we live. You know, I'm talking to you, Joey, you can hear me, there's going to be a dawn tomorrow. Not that world. Only in a fantasy world can you have 53 pieces of evidence pointing towards your guilt and still be innocent. Now, I'll just mention a couple of them to you. Number one, it was Oswald's Mannlicher Carcano rifle. That was a murder weapon. I mean, come on. That's fairly heavy all by itself.
Why does he order the rifle where it could be traced instead of just walking to a store in Texas and buying one?
So criminals never make mistakes. That's right.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying...
Well, how am I supposed to know that? But he did order that rifle under his alias's name, and handwriting proved that he was the one that ordered that rifle. It was also sent to his box office number in Dallas.
He could have bought a rifle in Texas.
So if he could have done something
right off the street.
But it was his weapon, though. Are you quarreling with that? His palm prints were on it. Are you quarreling with that?
Well, from what I've read, there's a dispute as to the legitimacy of the palm print, or is that? And
then fingerprints were found.
No, I'm not saying they took it. They went to the Undertaker and printed it.
So are you questioning that the Mannlicher Carcano rifle was the murder weapon, or that it belonged to him?
No, I'm questioning why he'd order it from a mail order house instead of buying it in a gun store.
Well, how can I answer questions like that? What does that have to do with the price of tea in China?
Well, I get the impression from reading your book you didn't think Oswald was stupid.
Well, he did all types of stupid things.
But you didn't think he was stupid?
No, I don't think he's a stupid person.
He might be smart enough to know that he doesn't want to get a weapon that's traceable back to him if he's planning on using it.
So you're saying that criminals, when they commit crimes, they always do it perfectly so you can never trace anything back to them?
No,
How do we get convictions with people like your state of mind?
I'm not saying that. I'm just raising the question.
I want to go on.
Go ahead.
I mean, that's just, in all deference, Tom. I mean, to ask me why he did this.
And I would like to refute that price of tea in China thing, because, you know, they got Starbucks there now.
Look, it was Oswald's Mannlicher Carcano rifle. He ordered it. He paid for it. The order is in his handwriting. It was sent to his P.O. box in Dallas. And that was, by the way, his alias, A. Heidel. All right, so it's. I thought you were going to come up with heavier questions and something like that, Tom.
Well, I'm working my way up to it.
All right, good. Please give me heavy questions. Okay. All right.
Can I throw in the heavy ones?
So it's Oswald's Mannlicher Carcano rifle. That's the murder weapon. Number 2, after the shooting in Dealey Plaza, he's the only employee who flees the building. He takes off. Number 3, and Al's already mentioned it, 45 minutes later, he shoots and kills Officer J.D. Tippett, Dallas Police Department. I told a jury in London, I said that murder bore the signature of a man in desperate flight from some awful deed. 30 minutes later, he resists arrest, pulls a gun on the arresting officer. During his interrogation, he told one provable lie after another, all of which show a consciousness of guilt. Anyone that tells me that Oswald is innocent, I know one of 2 things. I know he's either completely unfamiliar with the evidence, or he's just some very, very silly person that I don't have any time to talk to. Now, there's another part of the equation here. Just because Oswald is guilty does not mean that there was not a conspiracy. And my position, of course, is that there was no conspiracy, and if we have time tonight, I'd like to give you a little summary on that. We can do it later, or we can do it now.
Well, you know what, let me just throw in one thing that you brought up, which was something that I learned when I read the section about the JFK film, the Oliver Stone film. You brought up a point that I did not catch until you pointed it out to me in this, is that Stone is of the belief, the film demonstrates, that he didn't believe that Oswald had any part in the assassination. Well, no part whatsoever. He mentioned the way he sets up Garrison with the arguments and everything like that. It's that Oswald is set up. He's not, but he has nothing to do with the assassination. Talk about a complete
I was telling
fiction.
you about 53 separate pieces of evidence pointing towards Oswald's guilt. Poor Oliver, see, his movie was 3 hours and 8 minutes, and it wasn't enough time. And I have to sympathize with Oliver. He didn't have enough time in his 3 hours and 8 minutes to put even one of those 53 pieces of evidence in his film. In fact, he tries to make Oswald look like a hero who's trying to prevent the assassination. Stone's movie, Joey, is one continuous lie. Now, I have to amend that. He had the date correct, he had the location correct, he had the victim correct. It's one continuous lie, and I don't mind someone fictionalizing history. I don't think history should be fictionalized, but it's okay if you call it fiction. But he didn't call it fiction. He wanted his movie to be taken very seriously, and he had the stratospheric arrogance. Listen to this, Joey. He said he wanted his movie to replace the Warren Report, okay?
Yeah. I want to bring something up here. I don't know where you plugged into this, or if at all. You got plenty of time on the show, so stop looking at the clock. The show is easy. I worked in L.A. I worked at 20th Century Fox, and I had a long time with a lot of different things.
Pico Boulevard.
Exactly right. But I had a long time with John Barber. Mm-hmm. And John had a television show called Real People, which was, talk about a reality show. He put people on the air who were regular folks and celebrated them. And he's Canadian by birth. John just never on the side. He was on Channel 11 for a long time too, Metro Media, before he got the network show or the syndicated show. Yeah. And John used to say, this is not, something's not right about this Kennedy assassination. I just can't. It doesn't set right.
Right.
And he put all of his free time, as I knew him then, into this work. Now, I don't know if he joined up with Oliver Stone or where he went with his information, but he quit the job. He quit Real People.
Oh, yeah.
And went right into this whole Kennedy assassination.
It takes over people's lives. I mean, it's resulted in bankruptcies, divorces, suicides, and everything. I was on TV a year or so ago, and I said, if your child wants to get involved in this case, talk them out of it. It's toxic. It literally takes over their lives.
It's like taking kids and putting them in showbiz. Now, when
we're making them lawyers.
When we do this this review of evidence, which we've reviewed and rechewed and reviewed, and it keeps coming up, is there anybody in your travels who has given you something where the light went on? No? None of that. No. So there's nothing new then?
No.
And nothing exciting or nothing hidden or...
No. It's all sublime silliness, absolute silliness, and yet I've had to write 3,000 pages on it or close to it because look, if my editor didn't say, Vince, we're going to press, I wouldn't be here tonight. I'd still be responding to these silly people. And to show you how desperate they are, I wrote the whole book in longhand. I don't have a computer. But people send to me stuff on the computer. Yeah. This book hadn't even come out yet. It wasn't even published. And on the internet, they call it, they were savaging the book, saying it was no good, it was a pack of lies. The book hadn't even come out yet. I want to read you something else, if I can find it here, to show you how crazy these people are. They're so upset about this book. They're having so many kittens, and they're panicking so much. I want to read you something, and it's from the internet. It was sent to me. There's a JFK Lancer, that's a conspiracy publication, June 14th, and they're talking about my book and the Tom Hanks thing, and they're saying, action alert. Your help is needed as never before. They're desperate. By the weekend, JFK Lancer will have a petition to HBO stating, we, the JFK assassination community, refute the claims of Bugliosi, and the petition will state the major points of conspiracy evidence. They haven't even read the book. Al and Tom did, and I appreciate that. Send your research notes on Bugliosi's claims to us.
Be right back. Let's take a break. How many years ago was John F. Kennedy killed? It was 1963?
1963, yeah. 44 years ago.
So that's... how come we're still talking about this? Albert wants us here. Why are we still on this? Wait, let me ask Albert.
You know why? It was what you said. It was the birth of reality TV. It was the age of innocence for the United States. It was an opportunity to watch a young president, a dynamic president who brought youth to the presidency for the first time in our history, even though technically Teddy Roosevelt was younger when he became president.
So our dream got killed.
Our dream got killed.
All right. Now, what about you, Thomas? What do you think? Why are we still holding on to this?
Greatest murder mystery of all time.
All right. And Vincent Bugliosi is here, and he just finished a 1,700-page book, which would be unfinished if they didn't stop him.
Well, yeah.
And he wrote it by longhand, too. So he's going to be a monk.
But see,
after this, he's going to an ashram.
The other thing that's very good about this book is that you don't have to read the whole book, because you can read the beginning of the book and then pick out the things that you find most interesting.
The most interesting part is not about Oswald. We talked about that. We beat it to death with a stick. The most interesting thing is the conspiracy.
The conspiracy.
Oswald
the anti-conspiracy.
Marina, though, is very interesting. Oswald and his wife Marina is very interesting, though, too.
Well, yeah, because you know what? You need to know about this guy, and you really have to get into what was his lifestyle and things like that to appreciate, why he did what he did and where he came from and how he made this journey from basically living in New York area. You had an individual who had a very rough childhood, not a very good childhood. Find the Marine Corps, which we know Joey and I were down in Paris Island. We did a show from down there.
Yeah. We also did a documentary on it.
Right. We also saw the training
that
the Marines went through. We saw how the Marines are trained to shoot. I mean, I was able to.
But it was not. I just want to say this for Vincent to know. It was not military and it wasn't political. We wanted to show the spirit of the Corps.
Yeah, right.
Great.
And and we were taught to shoot just like the Marines. I had to qualify at 500 yards and was able to do it there. So it's
patriotism.
Well,
and was Lee Harvey Oswald was not an American patriot.
He hated America.
But
he learned to hate the Soviet Union too. Joey, there are several issues here, and you're in charge. But I can tell you from traveling around the country, there are several things that people are interested in, which I will address if you want me to.
Yeah, please.
Well, let me just tell you what they are, and then you can ask me. Well, the main thing is, was there a conspiracy? And we haven't talked about that yet. People also want to talk about the magic bullet. Have you heard about the magic bullet?
I have, but I thought that was a song by McCartney.
They also want to talk about the head snap to the rear. Now, we can talk about these things, or we don't have to, because this is all interesting, and I'm enjoying myself.
Can I ask about the Tippet question? Because Tippet has always been the
He was the cop that was shot.
He was the cop that was shot, but
after the assassination.
Yes, but it's a weird story about him, and it's something that has never, with regards to this assassination. Obviously, the president's assassination was a lot more significant, and Tippet died, and he was obviously part of this equation. Why was Tippet in the area that he was in? I read. The book goes in there about the radio broadcast. You have all the radio broadcasts in there.
Because everyone was going downtown because of the assassination. So the dispatcher sent him to that one area.
But why didn't he have his gun out? I mean, here he's approaching.
I think I talked about that also.
No,
in there.
that part was.
No, I did.
Unless it's in the end notes, because
there's a lot in the end notes. He had a strange way about him that may have come out of his service. No one knew for sure, but when he approached people, he always had his head down or looking to the left. He never looked at people. At the point he got out of the car, why didn't he? Because at that point we don't know what was said between Oswald and Tippet. But we do know there was something about Oswald. In fact, the description sent over the police radio kind of fit Oswald.
Right, exactly.
So he stopped Oswald, but not enough at that point to pull his gun on him.
Well, but
so we don't know what was said.
But the description
I think
was
Oswald
enough.
got the jump on him because the fellow police officer would say you cannot approach people looking down at the ground or looking to the left.
Well, you do mention that. I mean, obviously there's a lot of radio traffic and there's a lot of stuff going on and things along those lines. And then there's they're trying to get a hold of Tippet and he's not responding. Then the civilians get on the radio and they're like, hi, something happened here. This man's been shot, that type of thing. And then you show in the book the route that Oswald took from there to where he ends up at the movie theater. But do you think Tippet knew Oswald? Is there any chance that they could have known each other?
There's no evidence of that. I don't know what I can tell you, Al. There's no evidence of that.
And
I like your question, except I can tell you this: that if you found 10,000 people that are interested in this case in this country, 9,999 would be talking about the head snap and the the magic bullet and conspiracy, and you're asking a question which is very good, don't get me wrong, but you're in the extreme minority.
That is the truth. I know that.
But I'm just wondering about the audience out there, whether they want to get into things like this, which are valid. You raise the valid point, but no one is talking about this.
Yeah, but see, that's the point. I think that I think that there was some significance there.
Okay, if you want to draw the inference that they knew each other, there's some people that think that Tippett was involved. There was a conspiracy here.
Well, we've heard that. I mean,
he was supposed to drive him to the airport.
Drive him to the airport.
Yeah, but there's no evidence to support that. There's just wild speculation.
Well, what's the reason why all the roads lead to New Orleans?
Well, he was born in New Orleans.
Yeah.
And the summer before the assassination, he was living in New Orleans. He had a committee there promoting Cuba, fair trade for fair play for Cuba. And how it really got heavily involved in New Orleans is this goofy DA down there that prosecuted an innocent man. Yeah. And he was he had no evidence against Clay Shaw. The jury came back in about 53 minutes. He was a disgrace, not just to the legal profession, but to the people of
Louisiana,
New Orleans.
Yeah, like this guy here at Duke University.
The legal profession.
Right. Nifong and Garrison had a lot of similarities. In fact,
but
you talk
anyway,
about that
he was totally discredited. The New York Times said it's one of the most disgraceful moments in U.S. legal history. And then Stone comes along years later and disinters him from his legal grave and makes a hero out of him. But that's really the main reason why New Orleans is so big in this. But Oswald was there that summer, and he was born there.
Well, if we didn't have New Orleans in the configuration of the conspiracy, because New Orleans is so corrupt throughout history, and it's a mysterious place, and it's got the weather too. I mean, it's a strange little mix. If you didn't have that in there, if they were talking about something from Baltimore, you might have a little different.
Well, the book covers New Orleans, Dallas, Japan, Moscow, Minsk, Havana. I mean, it's just
the New Orleans thing is interesting because you do have that cast of characters. You have David Ferry,
right?
You know, who is
almost
certainly
a cartoon figure,
right, a cartoon, and you describe him as a cartoon, which is perfect description of him. You have Guy Bannister. Okay, you have the situation with regards to an overzealous prosecutor who is looking for headlines. I mean, that's
a separate story all by itself.
Vince that's the movie. That should be the movie.
Well, Vince puts the dialogue with Johnny Carson, and you talk about that situation when he was on the Johnny Carson show, and that Carson asked very pointed questions.
Carson's questions were fairly good.
Right, and
mine aren't bad either. Come on, although I'm a little younger.
Don't you see Cuba weaving in and out though? Cuba's weaving in, Cuba's weaving out. Castro, anti-Castro. I mean, that kind of cuts through the story, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Now, what did Johnny Carson ask? I was just playing here, but what
he
did
asked him basically, what evidence do you have? You know, and he didn't have the evidence. He just made a broad declaration that there were people on the grassy knoll whom he could see, and he had no evidence of that. And then he said the CIA was behind it, and Johnny said, why? He said, well, you'd have to ask the U.S. government why. You know, he didn't have an answer. Why would the CIA? Do you know who's the head of the CIA at the time?
No.
John McCone.
Right.
John McCone was a family friend of the Kennedys. Kennedy appointed John McCone CIA director. It's all silliness. I think before we go any further...
Why did you start on this again? We didn't get that out of you yet.
Why did I what?
Why did you reopen all of this? Or why did
Because I tried the case in London, and I found out in preparation for that trial that these conspiracy theories had no merit to them. They were all moonshine. And yet I knew that the majority of American people believed in it, so I decided to try to disabuse them of this phony notion.
But why did you start it? Did somebody come to you and say, hey, Vince, let's do a television series?
No, they called me.
Yeah.
And they wanted me to prosecute Oswald. And I said no. I said I appreciate it. I had many opportunities to appear on television in artificial courtroom settings.
Right.
And they said, wait a while now. They said, this is going to be completely different. We understand your love affair with your yellow pad. There's not going to be any script. Your yellow pad's going to be your script. Well, that sounded pretty good to me.
Sure.
No script. And then they said, we're going to have the original Warren Commission witnesses. That sounded good. And they said, you and Jerry will be working on this for almost a half a year. So this was not some lighthearted thing. In fact, Time magazine said it's the best television courtroom drama ever. The closest to a real trial that Lee Harvey Oswald would likely ever had. So we took it very seriously there in London.
Well, Joey, years ago, Al and I got the abbreviated version, the 5-hour version.
It was 21 hours, but
we watched it couple times.
Yes,
right?
we did.
I mean, it's great. It's good stuff if you ever can get your hands on it.
And a lot of that's in the book, of course.
What's it called?
On Trial, Lee Harvey Oswald, and a lot of my cross-examination and Spence's cross-examination and the way we address juries, he tries to establish a bond with the jury. I try to get their respect. So we have different techniques. A lot of that's in the book.
But you're on that show. You're on the TV show.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
Yes.
He's the prosecutor.
The book
prosecutor.
is endless in what it has. It's also the history of an era here. I incorporate historical events like the Bay of Pigs, the Cuban Missile Crisis, the Civil Rights Movement, the Gulf of Tonkin, Vietnam War. That's all in the book.
But you don't have Joe DiMaggio in there.
No, but Joe DiMaggio was a big hero of mine. When I wake up in the morning and get actually it was later in the afternoon when the paper came in Hibbing, Minnesota. First thing I turned to, I wanted to know how Joe D did. Did he get two for three or what? No, you probably saw him play.
Yeah, so you better be a big fan of his. Hold on for a minute. We'll be right back. The Joey Reynolds Show from New York, and we got the best-selling book, 1,700 pages of Reclaiming History, The Kennedy Assassination by Vincent Bugliosi. Be right back. All right, Vincent Bugliosi is here now. He wants to talk about the conspiracy of the Kennedy assassination, right? Is that what you want to do?
In traveling around the country and on radio, I would say, maybe this is an exaggeration, I don't think it is, I'd say that about 9 out of 10 calls that come in when we take calls, they're all on conspiracy.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, that's because we're educated with that.
Now,
that's the drama we have in our heads in this society. But we have conspiracy that goes on with everything.
Right.
There's one today, I mean, there's
what's that?
Well, the latest thing is the mayor running for president by using his own money and starting his own party. I mean, there's always a conspiracy. Why is he doing this? What's he going to do with his money? What's his party going to be like? I mean, that's what we do. We got nothing important to do here.
The one thing that I would say is that instead of looking, we can if we have enough time, but I'd rather not talk about any particular conspiracy theory. And the reason is this. If you say, Vince, tell me about anti-Castro Cuban exiles. All right. If we talk about that for 5 minutes, someone listening say, well, how come he didn't talk about organized crime? If we talk about well, how come he didn't talk about the CIA? You follow? And it goes on and on and on and on. So let me see if I can put all of these theories together into something, maybe a minute and a half or two. I'll try to consolidate everything. Number one, there's no credible, let's underline the word credible, let's italicize the word credible, no credible evidence that the CIA or mob or any other group was behind the assassination. There's just naked speculation. In London, during the trial that we were talking about, I told the jury, I said, I'll stipulate to you folks, I said, I'll stipulate that 3 people can keep a secret, I said, but only if 2 are dead.
Right.
Now, here these conspiracy theorists are talking about this vast conspiracy, okay, and yet close to 44 years later, not one word, not one syllable is ever leaked out. Why? Because there's nothing to leak out. Number 2, there's no evidence that Oswald ever had any association with any of these people, okay, any of these groups believed to be behind the assassination. And God knows the FBI checked this guy out. One of the leading conspiracy theorists, he's dead now, but he said they checked every breath this guy ever breathed. He's talking about the FBI. From the moment he arrived back in the States from the Soviet Union, I think it was June 13th, 1962, until the day of the assassination. 25,000 interviews. They found no evidence that Oswald had any connection with any of these people. Step number 3. I'm going to take it step by step. Assuming one of these groups wanted to kill Kennedy, and I find it surreal, I reject it out of hand, it's nonsense, it's the type of thing you'd find in a Robert Ludlum novel, but in my book, I treat it in greater depth than anyone has ever done before. But I'm telling you, it's all silliness. Let's assume that they wanted to kill Kennedy. Oswald would be one of the last people on the face of this earth
that anybody would trust. Nobody would trust him.
Number 1, he was not an expert shot.
Right.
He was a good shot. He was a sharpshooter. He just barely made sharpshooter, but he was not an expert shot. He had a $12 mail-order rifle, notoriously unreliable, extremely unstable. I mean, here's a guy, Joey, that defects to the Soviet Union pre-Gorbachev. I mean, even today, who in the world defects to the Soviet Union? One of the bleakest places on the face of the earth. And then to compound it tenfold, he wants to become a Soviet citizen. They turn him down. What does he do? He tries to commit suicide, slashes his wrists. Just the type of person, Joey, I'm being sarcastic now,
yeah, I know.
Just the type of person that the CIA or mob would want to rely upon to commit the biggest murder in American history. Let's take it to its 4th and final step. one of these groups wants to kill the president, and for whatever crazy, bizarre reason, they're going to use Oswald as their hitman, and he agrees to do it. Let's see if where that takes us makes any sense. Once Oswald left the book depository building, one of two things would have happened, Joey. I'll tell you the least likely thing first. The least likely thing that would have happened, there would have been a car waiting for him to help him escape down to Mexico, Costa Rica, or wherever. Certainly the conspirators would not want their hitman to be apprehended and interrogated by the authorities. But the most likely thing that would happen, Joey, by far, and you already know what I'm going to tell you because you're a very bright guy, if the CIA or mob got Oswald to kill Kennedy for them, the most likely thing by far, there would have been a car waiting for him to drive him to his death. You know that would have happened. You absolutely know that would have happened. And yet we also know that he's out on the street with $13 in his pocket trying to flag down buses and cabs. Any sensible person looking at that alone will tell you. In fact, I have a page in Time magazine will be coming out in about 2 days where I talk about these things. Any sane, sensible person would know that that alone tells you there was no conspiracy. The presidential motorcade route that took the limousine right below where Oswald was on the 6th floor, that wasn't even determined until November 18th, 1963, 4 days before the assassination. Does any rational person really believe that the CIA or mob or whatever other group would conspire with Oswald to kill Kennedy within just 4 days of the president coming to town? Now, the conspiracy theorists, you know what they say? Well, the Secret Service was behind it. Yeah, you know, here they're trying to take a bullet for the president, and they say, well, the Secret Service was involved. There's no way to satisfy these people. This book, Reclaiming History, is not for the conspiracy theorists. It's for people who believe in a conspiracy, okay? But they're not the conspiracy theorists. Those are the people that go to conventions, they get newsletters. I want to read to you the type of person that this book is for. His name is Gary Getzman. Getzman is Tom Hanks' partner. He's not a conspiracy theorist. He doesn't go to conventions or anything, but he believes in a conspiracy, as 75% of the American people do. He told Variety, I totally believe there was a conspiracy in the assassination, but after you read the book, referring to Reclaiming History, you are almost embarrassed that you ever believed it. To think that guys who grew up in the 60s would make a miniseries supporting the idea that Oswald acted alone is something I certainly wouldn't have predicted, but evidence can change the way we view things. Joey, it's silliness, it's nonsense, but it took me this many words because I have an answer to all the allegations, all the theories, some that Al and Tom, they're probably thinking, well, there was one thing that Vince didn't discuss. When you get into the endnotes, you're going to find that he did discuss them in the endnotes.
Well, he even attacks, like, you know, the Babushka woman. He talks about that and discredits her completely, and the fact that how she vacillated in her stories time and time again. The famous umbrella man, and the theories that went along those. The book does an incredible job in destroying like some of these like wacky theories that have been out there for years.
It does an incredible job of destroying your relationship with your kids. You read 1,700 pages. You must have done nothing in Little League this week. We'll be right back. Vincent Bugliosi is with us. So we got Albert Wunsch and Thomas Lynch together for the first time, two Jerseyites.
Yay!
We were on before with
Joan Mellon.
Joan Mellon's book.
I remember you were here, but
there's a whole section on Joan Mellon
in
the endnotes.
Vince, let me just
treat her too kindly.
Let me just ask you one thing before you get into the head stabbing. As I read the book, maybe a lot of the people that aren't intimately familiar with the subject, you talked about the Sylvia Odio incident, where Leon Oswald apparently came to her door in Dallas in late September. I think you said that you thought there might be some credibility to that. Am I right?
I kind of concluded, and I would not take it to the bank, that two Cubans, two anti-Cuban exiles, and perhaps Oswald came to Odio's door in September, shortly before the assassination. And but I discuss, it gets very, very complicated, as you well know.
Right.
Railroad times and bus times and everything. We would never be able to discuss it here, but the Warren Commission came to the conclusion that Oswald could not have been at that door because he was on his way to Mexico. But I feel that there's some pretty good evidence. Odio was not seeking publicity, not trying to sell her story, and her sister Sarah also said it was Oswald at the door. Right. So that's a very interesting story, but it would take me a half hour to discuss it.
Right, it would. But I think you also said, too, that, well, you don't aspire to any conspiracy theory if you had to lean in a direction at the anti-Castro Cuban.
Well, they're the ones that had the real motive because, as you know, they thought Kennedy was going to give air support at the Bay of Pigs. Now, Kennedy expressly said on national TV and radio, there's not going to be any American military involvement in the invasion.
Right.
Okay? They didn't believe him. Why didn't they believe him? It's understandable. The CIA, the federal government, they're training these people. They're paying them. Okay? They're behind the Bay of Pigs, so they felt at the moment of truth the United States government is going to be there. And Kennedy refused to give them air support. And a lot of them blamed Kennedy for the death of their brother or their father or what have you, who died on the beaches there. Sure. However, there had been a total reconciliation between the anti-Castro Cuban exile community and Kennedy prior to the assassination. I think it was in late December of '62 at the Orange Bowl. Castro received over $50 million to release all the members of Brigade 2506, whom he captured there. So he released them back to the United States for, I think, $53 million. And there was a welcoming ceremony at the Orange Bowl. Kennedy was there with his wife, and the leaders of Brigade 2506. They gave Kennedy their flag to hold for safekeeping, and because they knew his heart was in the right place. And he said, this flag will be returned to you, I'm confident, in a free Havana. But that makes a little sense in terms of motive. There's no evidence at all that the anti-Castro Cuban community, but these people, a lot of them blamed Kennedy for the loss of their loved ones.
But, and one other thing that I just wanted to jump in on the conspiracy thing that you talk about, and basically refuting JFK, because a lot of people have watched that movie time and time again,
right? And
that has sadly become the way we learn history in this country.
I know that.
You demonstrate in the book that Oswald, Ferry, and Ruby were never together. That you have
Only the Babushka lady claims that. And when I spoke at the Sixth Floor Museum about a week and a half ago, who's sitting right in front of the Babushka lady? I asked for a question. She doesn't raise her hand.
But then you also deal with the photograph, the famous photograph of the Civilian Air Patrol, in which you see Ferry in the photograph and you see Lee Oswald.
Yeah, they may have been together, not together, but
they were in that photograph.
In that photo, right.
And there's no doubt in your mind that that's an authentic photograph that wasn't retouched or anything like that.
No, I agree on that.
Now, Vince, wait, what about the magic bullet?
Okay. Let's talk about the magic bullet because it illustrates like nothing else how the conspiracy theorists just flat out lie, okay? Just flat out lie. Even not only when there's documentary evidence to refute them, but Joey, even when there's photographic evidence, film evidence, they still lie. Why? Because they know maybe only 1 out of 1,000 people has access to the photo or film. Now here's how they lie about, and who's one of the biggest authors of this whole magic bullet thing? Grodin.
Right.
Okay, and Grodin is sitting in front of me also at the Sixth Floor Museum, and I ask for questions. He doesn't raise his hand. In fact, he buys a copy of Reclaiming History and he wants me to autograph it. Okay. Here's what they do in their sketches. They place Governor Connolly in the presidential limousine directly in front of Kennedy. Well, he wasn't seated directly in front of him. And they know that, okay? They know he wasn't. In my book, I show the sketch, and then I show a photo of how they were seated in the presidential limousine. Connolly was seated at the president's left front, and they know that. But in the Zapruder film, not the Zapruder film, the JFK movie by Stone, and in all their books, they have these sketches, and they put Connolly directly in front of Kennedy, and they make this argument then. A bullet coming from the right rear, where Oswald was, passing through soft tissue, once it exited Kennedy's throat, to hit Connolly, they say, would have to make a right turn in midair and then make a left turn to go out to hit Connolly. And they say bullets don't even do that in cartoons, and everyone starts to laugh, okay?
Yeah.
Now, if you start out with an erroneous premise, everything that follows makes a heck of a lot of sense. The only problem is that it's wrong. Connolly was seated to Kennedy's left front, and they know it. I mean, there's photographs in the film. He was sitting in a jump seat a half a foot in. So a bullet passing through Kennedy, through soft tissues, everyone agrees, had nowhere else to go but to hit Governor Connolly. Now, in London, at the trial, Spence asked Dr. Cyril Weck. Do you know who he is, Dr. Cyril Weck? Okay.
Yes.
Cyril Wecht was Spence's pathologist in London. He said, will you characterize this bullet for the Dallas jury? It was a Dallas jury, but it was trials in London. He said, well, Mr. Spence, he said, it was a magic bullet. Bullets don't make right and left turns in midair. So on cross-examination, I said, now Dr. Wecht, I said, if this bullet passed through Kennedy on a straight line, soft tissue, would you agree, but did not go out to hit Governor Connolly, as you claim it did not, how come it didn't tear up the interior of the limousine or hit the driver or hit anyone else? He said, Mr. Bugliosi, I didn't conduct the investigation. I don't know. I said, now, wait a while, doctor. I said, sounds like you have a magic bullet here. If the bullet did not hit Connolly and did not hit the interior of the limousine, it did not hit anyone else, I said, it must have zigzagged to the left. And he says, no, it need not have zigzagged to the left. I said, did it hop, skip, and jump over the car? He says, no, it didn't have to perform any remarkable feat at all. I said, Dr. Wecht, tell this Dallas jury then, after that bullet exited from the president's throat, what happened to it? He said, I don't know. So who's got the magic bullet here now, okay? This is a bullet, if we're to believe the conspiracy theorists, that after it exits the president's throat, apparently, Joey, it vanishes into thin air without a trace. And yet the conspiracy theorists have taken that magic bullet, wrapped it around the neck of the Warren Commission for 44 years. And if you talk to 999 out of 1,000 Americans who know about the magic bullet, they'll say, oh, yeah, the Warren Commission came up with that bogus magic bullet. Yeah. So they deliberately distort the evidence, even when there's photographic evidence to refute what they're saying. Now, the other thing that they've done, and this is more genuine, and this is what started millions of Americans into believing that there was a conspiracy in this case. So I can't blame the conspiracy theorists for this, although now they're starting to lie about it. But originally, they were not lying about it. You look at the Zapruder film, and at the time of the headshot, okay, you see the president's head. This was first shown in 1975. It was on Geraldo Rivera's Good Night America. Millions saw it, and it was a talk over the water cooler the following day. And you see the head snap backwards, and you draw the inference, which is a normal inference. I mean, if a projectile hits an object, it pushes the object in the direction that the projectile is traveling.
Right.
You see the head snap to the rear. Ergo, they say the shot must have come from the right front, where the grassy knoll is, right? That's where the killer is. Not from the rear, where Oswald was, okay? And in fact, in London, Spence showed that section of the film 5 times. I didn't even object. He said it looked like Babe Ruth hit the president from the front. And he said, and Mr. Bugliosi is trying to convince you folks that what you saw with your very own eyes never happened. Now, if I didn't have
that was the subject of a discussion here for 5 years every night on Long John Neville's show.
Is that right?
The grassy knoll is Mark Elliott, who wrote Aaron Brockovich, and I. Mark's on the show a lot. We always often laugh about it. We say, oh, it was a grassy knoll, you know.
Right.
We go into that whole thing because that's good for 5 hours.
Of course.
You know.
Now, if I didn't have the answer for that in London, the verdict would have been not guilty, because that would have raised a reasonable doubt of guilt. I mean, I'm claiming that Oswald's to the rear, and then there's a head snap indicating a shot from the front. Here's the answer, and the photos are in Reclaiming History. I don't know of any other book of the close to 1,000 out there that have these photos in there. They're in the Warren Commission volumes, but these particular photos are only in this book right here. At frame 312 of the Zapruder film, the president's head's okay. At frame 313, 1/18th of a second later, there's 18.3 frames per second in the Zapruder film. You see the president hit in the head. You see the explosion to the head. And in what direction is the head pushed at frame 313? It's pushed forward, indicating a shot from the rear. Now, you cannot see this if you look at the film. You have to look at the individual frames, which I showed the jury in London on a screen. At the all-important moment of impact, the president's head is pushed slightly forward, 2.3 inches forward, indicating a shot from the rear where Oswald was. And then at frames 314 to 321, you have that head snap to the rear, which the pathologists say was a neuromuscular reaction, nerve damage caused by the bullet hitting the brain, caused the back muscles to tighten, which in turn caused the head to snap to the rear. But if I didn't have those individual frames in London, I think the verdict would have been not guilty. But well-intentioned people believe, when they saw that the shot came from the grassy knoll.
You must be a lot of fun at a at an Amway party. We're going to be right back. Vincent Bugliosi is here. He's written this Reclaiming History of the Kennedy Assassination. Be right back. We got Albert Wunsch here and also Thomas Lynch, who are two attorneys.
And we've both been spanked.
Yeah. By
Experience is telling.
Thank God I didn't have to try a case against him.
Does fame take precedence?
Oh, well, I mean, first of all,
being good takes precedence.
Let's talk. All right, we know about his book, and he's done some great work, and it's excellent, and he's obsessed with this thing.
Well, but you know what?
But you know what? I think you got to be
that passion is incredible, and that passion is so important as a prosecutor because that's what drives the case, and to get a jury impassioned is the most important thing that a prosecutor can do. A defense attorney is supposed to deflect. The defense attorney is supposed to calm them down. A defense attorney is not supposed to get the people riled. But what Vince does, and when you watch, the way he talks about these things, and when you saw him try that case in London, and then when you watch even Helter Skelter, is the passion that this man has for the industry and for what he does is just, it's truly admiring. And that's the way the book is written just like he speaks, which is the most remarkable thing about it. And that's why, even though there's about like 17,000 words on each page, when you read them, they flow so well.
I appreciate that.
Now I'm going to ask you a question. Having spent all this time in L.A., let's just and I do appreciate also what you said, Albert, and we talk about him behind his back before he got here, and we've been complimenting him off the air. But I'm thinking about the general public. Put me out there as the common guy, just a regular guy. Why are all these celebrities getting away with these murders in L.A. especially? What is the reason?
It's getting so bad that if you want to commit a murder, I guess you should go out to L.A. If you don't have the money, hitchhike, but get out there. It's terrible. I mean, Simpson is guilty as sin, and the other guy, I don't have to mention his name, he's guilty.
And so is Beretta.
Well, that's what he's talking about, is the other guy.
Oh, Beretta wouldn't have gotten off. The parrot talked. What happened with these guys? How did they get up? And now Phil Spector,
Spector's trials, the prosecution's case is
he's
done.
In trouble a little bit, maybe.
But it's terrible. It's terrible that these people are getting by with murder out in L.A.
Is there a weakness that we have in our?
Well, I was on, I think, the Today Show with F. Lee Bailey a couple years ago, and someone was asking me, why all the kookiness out there, and I said, have you ever heard of the continental tilt theory, where all the loose nuts end up on an L.A.? I don't know what's that. It's terrible out there. What's happening now? I mean, people are getting by with murder.
Where are you living now?
Pasadena.
Why?
Which is a suburb of L.A.
I know where it is. Well, why are you living there? You're not retired.
Why am I living there? It's like the question Tom asked me, why did Oswald do something? I can't.
What, you want to be close to Mitchell Linda or something? I mean, where are you?
No, Pasadena is probably the greenest area of the whole basin around there. My wife and I have always loved it. But
one more step, you'll be in Glendale.
We used to live in Glendale.
It's all right.
So you know this area very well.
Yeah, I do.
Well, you used to live there, yeah. How long were you out there?
Well, I did 2 tours of duty.
Oh, in Los Angeles. You call it a tour of duty, live in L.A., right?
The interesting thing is for me with you is that you are so focused on this 44-year-old item of business.
Well, but I'm going on to other stuff, though. I'm going on to other stuff, whereas these other people are not going to be able to let go. See, because basically I'm telling them, I'm talking about the conspiracy theory, that they've wasted the last 15, 20 years of their lives. People don't like to be told that. I'm also asking them to forfeit their future, and they're hanging on desperately. But about the obsession, I did have an obsession while I was writing it, but I'm able to leave it now and go on to other things.
You have kids? Do you have kids?
The Washington, but they've left home.
Right.
The Washington Post says, to say that Bugliosi wants to strike a nail in the coffin of Kennedy assassination conspiracy theorists is putting it mildly. He wants to drive a tractor trailer through their ranks and scatter everyone in sight. Is such an effort really necessary? All these words. It's equivalent of about 13 volumes. I am afraid it is, he says, which is another way of saying that we ought to be grateful for Bugliosi's obsession, which is the same word that you use. I was obsessed with it at the time, but I've got to move on to other things. And then he says, if you read or even read around in this book and still come to the conclusion that Oswald was part of a conspiracy to kill Kennedy, you are likely to believe that black helicopters have been sent by the feds to enforce the Endangered Species Act.
Now, before we run out of time, let me get you on the air here for a minute here about something. Vince, you know, this whole country is in trouble right now.
Right.
We got a lot of moving parts.
Right.
And we're split. And so we don't have a great. I guess I would say we got three areas in our government that work and sometimes not together.
Right.
And the legal area, I'm going to ask you about that because you're an expert at it. You're experienced at it.
I'm an expert in the criminal law in cases that I'm trying. Otherwise, I'm no expert on the law.
Well, but
I'm sure
it comes from people.
Tom and L
Wait.
Give you better answers.
I don't know because it comes from people not wanting to play nice. And you know there's a morality to it. There's a certain kind of thinking and there's a certain kind of behavior. And sometimes they're not the same. And as you mentioned a little earlier, just because the evidence points to someone, all you know is that somebody committed a murder, and it may not look like it, but this is the murder.
I'm saying that we know that he did it from the evidence, and there was no legal justification as to his motive. Sometimes we don't know that.
All right, so let's take this as a country now. You know, you're living here like we all are, and we like our freedom.
But I don't even read the paper. I'm so engrossed in what I'm doing, I hardly know what's going on.
All right, so you're not paying any attention to any
very
of the
little.
legal
I see headlines. I've been working 7 days a week on this thing.
Yeah,
7 days.
Well,
a week.
You're done with this now.
Well, I'm not done with it because I'm traveling around the country and I'm working from early morning to late at night.
All right, so when you get put this aside, the Kennedy stuff, what are you going to do?
I'm writing a series of essays. I will not tell you what they are right now, but I'll tell you they'll be the hardest hitting book of essays probably ever to have been written in America.
What area?
Extremely hard hitting.
In law?
Some is law. There's all types of things. Very, very hard hitting.
Well, that's what I'm asking you about, isn't it?
But without telling you what it is, yeah.
Yeah. So you don't want
very hard hitting. I'm very, very upset with all types of things, and probably I'll end up alienating the entire country.
But that's what I'm saying to you. I'm just asking you about that, not even knowing it. I'm just sensing it. I mean, you know, you're too powerful and too strong in your convictions to not be put to good use right now. Usefulness is what I was looking for out of you, frankly, as a human being.
Well, I'll be back on your show, I hope, but I can tell you it's going to be very, very heavy. Very heavy stuff. I'll tell you some of the lighter things if you want to know.
No. I'll let it. I'll let it go
the
with
heavy
that.
stuff.
The
publisher doesn't want me to talk about.
But
it's going to be very heavy and very hard hitting.
I'll let it go. I know how to release. The thing because I'm not doing Fox. You know, I'm not a fear-based person.
Yeah.
I'm a faith-based person, but it doesn't necessarily a religious way.
Let me tell you, Joey, you're a real pro, okay?
Yeah.
I've been interviewed by a lot of people. You're a real pro, and it was an honor to be on your show.
Well, thank you for saying that.
I mean that.
And before we leave here tonight, because you got one lawyer on one side, another one on the other side. God knows how.
I appreciate that they read the book. And
this configuration.
Speak highly of it.
And we read Helter Skelter, too.
Yeah.
But, you should have that same, in the Helter Skelter book, you said this story will scare the hell out of you. Yeah. You should put that warning on this book, that this book will give the conspiracy theorists their life back. Because that's what you've done. You've demonstrated to them that, like you said, that 20 years, 15 years of their lives was all for naught.
But they're not even reading the book.
Well, that's a tragedy.
But yet they're saying it's full of lies, don't buy it, and they haven't read it themselves. But people who believe in a conspiracy, a lot of those people are reading this book. But I'm talking about the theorists, their whole life. I mean, I got a letter from a doctor, just to show you how these people are. And he's writing to me, and he says, Mr. Bugliosi, I've always respected you. I've read all your books. How can you possibly... This is prior to this book coming out. But he had heard that I was saying there's no conspiracy. How can you possibly believe there's no conspiracy in this case? I've been living with this case for 15 years. When I go to the bathroom, when I have breakfast, I'm starting to think, is this guy a surgeon, you know? Is he thinking about it when he's conducting surgery? He says, I've been living with this case for 15 years. This takes over their entire life, and they're angry with me now. But they're very angry. They're not reading the book. They're just saying, don't read this book. It's a pack of lies, and they haven't read it themselves.
Well, you hit the nail on the head when you said in this book that people who disagree with the Warren Commission have never read the Warren Commission, and that makes perfect sense, and that's why this book is essential for anyone.
What book? What's that book called?
The book is called Reclaiming History: The Assassination of President
John
F.
Why do you think
Kennedy.
so many people still want to believe in a conspiracy? I mean, obviously a lot of people still want to believe in it.
Do we have time to talk?
No. But you're going to come back.
We don't have.
So don't worry about it.
You had said that
We got to go. We're out of time. But I want to tell you something about today that I know Charles Manson is in solitary confinement, and he wants to be let out because he can't stand the company. You knew that. Let us smile up your umbrella, but don't get a mouthful of rain.